Hey everyone, welcome to today's edition of One Single Story. It's Friday, and we have been having a conversation around the book of Haggai, and we had some supplemental reading today in Psalm 116. And I'll read up to verse 6, but verse 6 is where I want to spend the most time. It says, I love the Lord because he hears my voice and my prayer for mercy. Because he bends down to listen, I will pray as long as I have breath. Death wrapped its ropes around me, and the terrors of the grave overtook me. I saw only trouble and sorrow. Then I called on the name of the Lord. Please, Lord, save me. How kind the Lord is, how good he is, so merciful, this God of ours. The Lord protects those of childlike faith. I was facing death, and he saved me. He says the Lord protects those of childlike faith. So that's where I want to spend some time. What is childlike faith? How would you describe it?
So this version says simple-hearted. I think that's a pretty good explanation of it.
And when you say simple-hearted, what does that mean to you?
Not overly complicated.
Okay.
Taking things at face value. Trust. I think that usually says a lot about trust.
Yeah, when I think about childlike faith, I think of it in the context of, whether it were my kids when they were young or my grandsons when they were young, that it had to do more with the confidence they had in the relationship than even the information that may have been exchanged. That they knew that if it were coming from this source, they may not necessarily understand it or even like it, but they knew that there was somebody who cared ultimately for them, had their best interest at heart. And I think childlike faith is a lot like that, where it has more to do with the confidence in the relationship than even what's being transferred as far as information to us. I think of children, and occasionally you'll see this, when they're looking at a parent or listening to a parent or a grandparent. There's just a sense of wonder and awe where they're just enamored by the fact of who that individual is. Therefore, what's being said or exchanged is so much more impactful coming toward them. The other thing I think about as relates to childlike faith is children are very innocent in the sense of, if you share information with them, you have a conversation, they're very open to honesty. They'll say what's on their mind, and they'll ask a ton of questions because they want more information. And I think childlike faith with God is a lot that way, that we listen, we're eager for the relationship, we have trust and confidence in him, but we're free to ask questions of God, to have a dialogue back and forth. Okay, I see that, I hear that, but what does that mean? How does that apply to me? So I see a lot of those attributes. I think you used the word, or the translation was simple.
Simple-hearted.
Yeah. I think that's a good narrative of it.
Yeah, I posted a thing I saw on social media today. It was a quote. It said, faith is acting like you believe what God says is true.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing about a child, is whatever you say, they believe is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as they get older, they begin to question everything. But as a child, they believe everything you say. If you tell them there's a monster in their closet,
there's a monster.
There's a monster. Whatever you say is true. And I think having childlike faith is this willingness to trust God and believe that whatever it is he says, ever how ridiculous it is, ever how uncomfortable it make us, just believing that it's true and acting like it's true. And continually coming to him. That's the thing about even a kid, like that whole faith thing. There's a stool in this room. If you put a kid on that stool and ask them to jump to you, it may take them a little while. But if they jump one time, they're going to do it again.
You better be watching.
That's right. Yeah, because they're going to keep on doing it. That's right. Because they believe that you're going to follow through with what you said. And so I think that it is important for us to approach God believing what he said, not doubting, not wondering, because we're all guilty of praying, Lord, if it's your will, on certain things. And I don't want to take God's will out of it. But I think sometimes we just have to believe, okay, this is what God said, and we're going in this direction, and we're gonna do what He said. And this belief that whatever He says is right and true and righteous, and we're going to do the best we possibly can with it. And I don't always have childlike faith. As a matter of fact, I'm reading a book right this minute, and it's talking about my particular generation, and it was sharing how that the generation that my generation was the first generation that really started questioning everything. Now it's worse, but that we really just started questioning everything. We didn't believe much of anything anybody said. We distrusted so many people. Mm. And when I was reading, I was thinking, gosh, I can be cynical. I don't like it. And the thing we have to be careful is not to be cynical with God. If God said it, He's going to do it, and we should just follow along. And I see how they grow out of it. I have grandkids at 12, 9, 8, and 4, and they're all at that different phases of believing and not believing. From anything from Santa Claus to the Easter Bunny to the Tooth Fairy to you.
Yeah.
Right? They're all at different phases of whether they believe it's going to be true or not.
Well, just like we derive great pleasure in those relationships, with kids, because they do just willingly just buy into it. How much pleasure it must bring God when we do that with Him and His Word and His instructions to us, that we just take Him at face value.
Well, thank you for joining us today on this edition of One Single Story. We hope you'll be back with us next week as we start a brand new book.